Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate all that. So we're just going to take a few minutes and talk about some new technology, some trends that we see out there in the AV world, and how you can apply them into your maybe emergency operations center or other areas of your operations. So the 5 areas that we're looking at tonight are video walls, source signaling and processing, because that's always an exciting thing everybody wants to talk about is source signaling and processing, but you'll see what we're talking about. 4K displays, bring your own device. We're seeing that really becoming a big part of what we're doing in emergency operations centers. And of course, desktop video conferencing and also handheld video conferencing, similar to what we're doing right now, so broadcasting live. So video walls. Everybody loves video walls in their EOC. Got to have a video wall. And the nice thing about it is that we are starting to see a trend where we have very thin walls, thin bezels around our video wall. And okay, thank you for that. And so, as a matter of fact, if you look at this display here, you'll notice that this bezel is about a ½ inch wide. When we use the displays for video walls, are even thinner than that, and you can barely see them. So that's something we're really seeing. The industry is really moving to really thin, so you don't see those lines as well as you do here. Now, video walls are great because we can take essentially a 55-inch monitor and stack them and make one gigantic monitor. So, for example, I can have 2 monitors high, 2 monitors wide, and now make one large image, or I can go all the way up to 5 by 5. That's 25 monitors all stacked together to become one large image, or it could be multiple images within that larger display. So video walls are an easy way for us to get a large display very easily. Now, the one exciting thing about video walls, and I think where we're going to see the industry going, is direct view LED. So this is basically, instead of having a monitor, we actually have a LED that emits light in a full color spectrum. And the great thing about direct view LEDs being the next big thing is that we can make them any size we want. So for example, here we're actually having 4 images stacked to left to right on this operations center, and direct view LED allows us to do that. There's some other advantages to direct view LED, is that the spacing between the pixels are becoming very small, so that means our viewing distances can be very close. So even with a direct view LED wall, we could be sitting 15 feet in front of it and not see the bezels or the pixels themselves. We can also see there's no bezel around that because these are made of tiles. So each tile in a direct view LED is a module. It gets plugged into a backplane, and then we just stack these together. The other nice thing about direct view LED is it has an extremely wide viewing angle, and what that means is that if I'm looking at the image off to the side here, I can see that with the same color and clarity as I would if I was seeing it directly on. And also, because everything is so compact, only projecting off the wall about 6 inches or even less in some manufacturers allows us to directly apply it to a wall in front of our operations center. So no longer do we need the large room behind to project on and have a screen, have the projector in the back. So it really gives us some real advantages. The other thing too is that we can also make different shapes and sizes with direct view LED. Now, I'm not saying that we do something like you see in the sports arena where there's a ribbon going around in your EOC, but it gives us some flexibility and some options to put in spaces and areas that we wouldn't normally do. Now, when we do have a video wall, we also want to think about the processing. What that means is taking multiple signals and windowing them on the display. So you can see here, for example, this is one big large display, but we've got different images up there. How do we process that? How do we take the different signals in? The other thing too is that if we have a video wall that may not be the common aspect ratio size, a video wall processor allows us to shrink those images down and process them out. So part of thinking about video wall is also the processing side of it. The other way we can do it is just making one large desktop. So imagine your work computer with multiple monitors. That's one landscape, one backdrop, just different windows on top of that. Now, another thing that we're actually seeing take a lot of traction in the Pro AV world is the way to send HDMI signals around from your computer to the display. And we're seeing that traditionally, you would take an HDMI cable and run it from point A to point B. Now we're actually able to run that signal over a switch packet network. Now, whether this is a private dedicated data network or your building network, we're able to take information from laptops, computers, cameras, and actually route that, encode it, put it onto the network, switch it around to a decoder, and the decoder turns it back into an HDMI output and allows us to display. The great thing about that is that we can then utilize maybe an embedded network infrastructure that's already in place. It also gives us the ability to scale this. So, for example, if I have 2 inputs here and all of a sudden I need to add a 3rd input, on traditional matrix switchers, well, I might be out of inputs. I have to buy a new switcher. With AV over IP, I could actually add another encoder. I've got another input in the system. Now, the other thing that's coming out there is 4K displays. I know we've been talking about 4K displays, and exactly what is it? Well, we call it 4K because it is 4 times the resolution of a 1080p signal. So, for example, if this is a 1080p signal, which is what your current TV is, it's actually 4 times that resolution. Now, it is becoming the standard in consumer TVs. You can't really go buy a TV today that's greater than about 24 inches that's not 4K. It's just the way it is. The fab plants are actually turning out the raw LCD glass. That's what they're cutting it to, so 4K is where it is. So like I said, you're going to get a 4K display. It is becoming the standard, and that's being driven by consumer TVs. We see that in the Pro AV market. So what can you do with 4K displays, and why would you even want one in your EOC? Well, first of all, it allows you to sit closer to the monitor. Now, I realize that might not be something you're thinking about, but if you have a small EOC room, you don't have a lot of space, you have operators and folks that are sitting close, 4K displays allow you to have greater resolution, and thus you can sit closer to them. You can also do a quad view. So for example, what we have here's a 4K display and the ability to put 4 1080p signals right up on the display. As a matter of fact, this display that we have here is a 4K display, and internally you can do that. And if you saw it earlier in the day, we were able to put 4 signals up there independently, right, with using all the inputs that's on the display, switch it back to individual input, and off we go. The other nice thing about 4K, the reason I really do like it, and you should have it in your EOC, is for GIS. GIS is a highly detailed information. It allows you to really zoom in, get a big picture, and that allows you to have a map super detailed. And another thing, and I'd encourage you later to come up and actually look and see how tight the pixel spacing is on this display. You can see why that would support high resolution. The other trend we're seeing, of course, is bring your own device. Bring your own device is going anywhere from the corporate world to the education world, and certainly what we see in EOCs. And that means that, you know, we all have multiple things with us. You know, you go into your EOC work position, you'll probably have a resident PC there. You might have an agency PC or a laptop that you bring in. You know, you've got your personal cell phone. You might have a work cell phone with you. You might have your tablet with you. So you can see pretty quickly that all of a sudden I've got all these devices, and we need to think about what we're going to do with those and how to handle that. So some considerations about that is you really need to make sure that your EOC is capable of sharing information that's on your portable devices. So for example, I go out to a seat and I come back in, I have some pictures I want to show everybody. How do I get that off my iPhone and up onto the big screen and share it with other folks? Also, I want to make sure that I have a network, because, you know, if I'm sitting there working in the EOC, I want to make sure I have network connectivity to allow me to stay connected with my work folks and also my family. So we recommend, actually, and according to the technology recommendations for EOC white paper, that we at least have 3 have the ability to have, for every person in your EOC, 3 network connections. That means 3 IP addresses and the capacity of your Wi-Fi system to support that. The other thing too is power. You know, I recommend that you in your EOC, you have a bucket over in the corner that has every known Lightning to USB, USB to C adapter, micro USB, anything you have. Just have a bucket full of those, because people always need those cables, and they always need the USB power supplies to make sure you have those with you to plug in, so when somebody runs into your EOC, they can power up their phone. The other thing we see out there is really making a big difference is desktop video conferencing or video conferencing on portable devices, and that's through the use of a soft codec. And what do I mean by a soft codec? Well, no longer do we have a dedicated piece of hardware that was used for video conferencing. It's all a piece of software. So something like Microsoft Teams, Skype, a variety of different types of soft codecs are out there, and they're perfectly fine and reasonably secure to use. Like I said, those could be an app. They could also be a web-based service that you log into and connect with. So why would I ever want to use video conferencing in my EOC? Well, first of all, it's a great way to do briefings. The virtual EOC can be supported this way, allows your folks that can't physically be in the room to be connected to everybody in the room. We had a good conversation in one of the training courses about how having face-to-face communication is so important, and video conferencing allows you to do that, even though you might be physically separate. It allows you to support VOS members. So you might have a subject matter expert or a volunteer organization that's in some remote area that's able to bring resources into your by using a video conferencing. Thing too, you might have the incident command post out on a remote location. Allows you to do a video link with them, and once again, extend that face-to-face collaborative work. Another thing too is actually seeing the scene. So important that if you're sitting in the EOC that you understand from a situational awareness, but also just hey, what's going out there in the world? Allows you to bring that picture or that image in the world back into. So those are just a couple of 5 things we're going to do, some neat things out there. I'd be glad to talk to anybody who have any other questions.